live streaming to YouTube now. Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it. Yes, press the button. Thanks, Chair.
Amazing, amazing. Right, good evening, everyone. I'm Councillor Steve Crimoyson, the Chair of the Kings Barton Forum, and I'd like to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Kings Barton Forum on Monday, the 23rd of September, and the time is 6:02. This meeting is being held virtually and in accordance with the Council rules for virtual meetings. Councillors are reminded that although this meeting is being held remotely, they are regarded as being present in a meeting of the Council and they should observe the normal rules of behaviour. First of all, please can I ask everyone in this virtual meeting that your microphones remain muted and your camera is turned off whilst you're not addressing the meeting, as this will reduce the background noise and avoid any unintentional disturbances. And if you could also, members, ensure that your mobile phones are now switched off or otherwise silent so that we don't actually disturb the meeting. This meeting is live streamed from the Council's YouTube channel and the recording will be available after the meeting. Subtitles can be switched on and advice on how to turn these on is set out in our website. Members and officers, where appropriate for each item, please indicate that you would wish to speak or to raise a point of order or an explanation by raising your hand using the hand icon on your screen, and I will invite you to then speak at the appropriate time. Each member will be invited to speak in turn, and therefore I'd encourage all members to keep your contributions as clear and concise as possible. Thank you. Right, now I'm going to move to the actual agenda. So we can start with apologies. Nancy?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we've had apologies from Councillor David Tozer from Littleton and Harestock Parish Council, and I've also been advised that Councillor Rob Waters from Headbourne Worthy Parish Council might be late if he is able to join at all, but we have Councillor Antonio De Stefano from Headbourne Worthy Parish Council here instead.
That's great, and thank you, Antonio, for stepping into the breach, as it were. If we can now move on to disclosures of interests, would any members like to declare any interests that we all need to be aware of? So just put your hand up. I'll start with Councillor Porter.
Thank you. I've got a non-prejudicial interest because I'm also a county councillor and Kings Barton is in my division. So that's my interest, but it's non-financial.
Yeah, and in fact it's a double interest that is actually very useful to all of us. And Councillor Todd?
Yes, I'm actually here as a county councillor, and county councillors don't normally have to declare that they're district councillors as well, but for clarity I think I'll just be clear that I am also a district councillor and leader of Winchester City Council, but I'm here as a county councillor. Personal non-prejudicial interest.
Thank you.
And ditto for me, Steve, if that's okay. Whatever Martin just said.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, it's part of the process, isn't it? Right. So let's move on to Jackie. If you could just lower your hand, unless you've got a point of order. We'll move on to chairperson's announcements. I don't really have much of substance other than to say that reports from each of Headbourne Worthy Parish Council and the Kings Barton Residents Association were received and circulated to all members last week. So I hope all members have read them. Also, there is a summary update on the S106 S278 agreements, which was circulated by Nancy earlier today. I appreciate that might have been a bit late for members to have had a good look through. We will I think our City Council officers, Ruth and Rob, if he's on the call, will perhaps talk to that a bit later on, and we'll see if we can get that circulated perhaps a week or two before the next meeting so that we have that in good time. Okay, moving on to appointment of vice chair. So do I have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Johnny Morris, please.
Thank you, Councillor Batho. Do I have a seconder for? Oh, do I have a seconder for Johnny? I can't see a seconder at the moment, but I suppose I could.
I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Eve and Councillor Porter. But so we've got a seconder. Do I have any other nominations? I'm not seeing any hands up, so I think that is carried. So, Councillor Morris, you are now second. Should I suddenly disappear off the screen, you will have to imagine everything that I've got on my notes here. Right, moving on to the minutes of the previous meeting. As we all know, the July meeting was cancelled due to the general election, so our last meeting was in March. I hope members have had a chance to have a look through the minutes, if not in the last few days, back soon after those minutes were circulated, I guess in April. Are they all agreed? Could you open up your mics and agree or put a thumbs up?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Agreed. Okay.
Agreed.
Okay. And I've not heard any disagreements, so we'll take those as agreed. Perfect. And just as I don't think I've got a specific place in the agenda to say this, our next meeting of the forum has not actually yet been scheduled, but I expect it to be in February or perhaps in early March. I'll leave that with Nancy. Will pick that up in the minutes, and no doubt we'll look at the bigger schedule and see where it is that it fits in. Okay, right, excuse me, that voice is starting to go. Let's move into public participation. I'm going to ask if Antonio Di Stefano can kick off on behalf of Head Wormworthy Parish Council. Now, your notes were circulated to members, so I think you can assume they have been read, but you might just want to just hit the headlines just to remind everyone.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. Just the summary, very quick summary. Community building. I mean, there has been a working group for Head Wormworthy Parish Council working on the community building, evaluating the characteristic of the proposal from CAVA of this building. The working group has been comparing the characteristic of the design of this community building with comparing with other community building in other area in the region. The conclusion is that this building basically is not adequate in size and in features, and we are vitally concerned. And we would like, we are aware that that city and county council are working with CAVA to improve this design. Second item is into a play area. In the past, the play area for 1A and for 1B have been wrongly delayed, and it has been a big disappointment for residents, for Kings Barton residents. We are all the common interest. We are working with CAVA and with local planning authorities in order to design and to approve the design of this play area as soon as possible, in the best suitable way, including all the necessary items for the community, and also according to the design code previously established. New bus service. We are really pleased. There is an item in the agenda regarding this new bus service that will be implemented. I would like just to say that we are very pleased for this, and we believe that this is a huge improvement for the Kings Barton community development. And personally, I would like to thank those that have supported this project, in particular Councillor Porter, Councillor Cremoisan, and Mike Thornhill from Transport Department in Hampshire County Council. Christmas Lights, the KBC has been working on a project to install Christmas light in Winchester Avenue. And finally, the 1B roads, we are pleased to note that after 5-year waiting time, the roads and the pavement in 1B area have been, remedial works have been carried out and are still going on. And, just we hope that it will not take another 5 years to be completed, finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Antonio. I think we'll pick up your comments about the community building and the phase 2A play area when we get to Carla's segment in the agenda. I think you were distinctly modest about your contribution to making sure that the minibus based bus service happens. So well done, Antonio, for your efforts in pushing on that item and making sure that all of us were working all in the right direction. So thank you very much for that, Antonio. Right, thank you. Now, Mike Slynn, you're here on behalf of KBRA as usual. So, Mike, we've all had your report. Are there any highlights you want to draw to our attention?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll be brief as I can. The first is Winchester Avenue. You've probably seen the photo of the severe drainage problem that there is, flooding, and we understand the Carla are going to address this. Clearly, it's unsatisfactory at the moment. We asked the City Council if they could give us some advice on what is going to be the split between Sir John Moore Barracks development and the development we have Kings Barton. When you're talking about local sports facilities, what is going to be the balance? We're looking for some advice on what is the best balance there. So that's something that's outstanding. The bus service is great news, and well done, Antonio, for pushing this forward. We're very pleased that at last there's going to be a minibus service. We've also put forward ideas for walking and cycling, but they're not included in the local CWIP cycling and walking implementation plan. So again, we'd really like to talk with the City Council about how the measures we propose could be considered and taken forward. We've prepared another petition. This is about really Sir John Moore Barracks, with a proposal that Sir John Moore Barracks should be dependent on Andover Road being reopened or kept open, depending on the timing. And we've had we're now up to 3,300 local resident supporters for that, and we've addressed to the City Council on this issue. A bit puzzled about the park and ride site, because there's an article in the Hampshire Chronicle recently that suggested that the park and ride site at Kings Barton would not go ahead, and this would be very bad news for Kings Barton, because the bus service, the finances of the bus service are heavily dependent on patronage from the 200 space park and ride site, and we're not sure what's going to happen at Sir John Moore Barracks as far as a park and ride site is concerned. And we were noting that a survey that was undertaken in 2023 by HCC suggested that the demand for park and ride would be only about 187 spaces. So we'd really like to know what is going on there. Perhaps the City Council could advise what their plans are for this park and ride site at Sir John Moore Barracks and how it relates to the site at Kings Barton. We've been talking with Carla and Anthem about how residents could be more directly involved in the management of the maintenance of the site, and those are ongoing. We're hoping that there's been an update on Section 106 contributions and plans, but we haven't seen anything on that as yet. So it'd be great if the City Council could advise us on that. We have met recently with the City Council and grateful for that. And they've had our comments on the closure of Andover Road. And we're grateful that we can work closely with the Parish Council to achieve very common objectives. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I think we will cover the Winchester Avenue flooding piece when Carla have their slot. I think they will be able to confirm they've already done some works. The point about local sports facility, I think one of the things I find I have to keep stressing in each of these meetings is that we have terms of reference within this meeting, which is about facilitating and working with the authorities and Carla to execute the master plan as agreed. So this actual forum does not actually have any authority to change things. Its job is to actually, work with to get the plan executed. So there's a number of items here where it kind of really falls out of scope. As soon as we start getting into what's the balance between John Moore Barracks, so of course the Sir John Moore Barracks is out of scope, not part of this meeting. There are other avenues you can influence what goes on there. You can talk to your councillors about your concerns about the balance of sports facilities, but it's not a topic that is really fits within the terms of reference in this forum. And moving on to the petition around the closure of Andover Road, that also is not, not something that the terms of reference sit comfortably. That item does not sit well with our terms of reference. So some of these things, yes, we know that's your view. We've heard it many times, including at council last week, city council last week. But it's not within the gift of this forum to make decisions on these matters. So that's, and similarly, I would say around the Carla and Anthem engagement. Yes, I understand the concern there. I can, well appreciate you might be concerned, but it's not something that falls within our terms of reference. It might be something where some of the members could participate in conversations that might help to get to an accommodation, but that applies to some of the other items. As for the S106, yes, there is a late update on the S106 and 278s. It is now up on the portal. Came through to me very late, so we weren't able to get up on the portal in as much time as I would have liked. It won't necessarily, it will not in fact, it will tell you which items on the S106 have been completed, in some cases part completed, but it will not tell you, where, for example, the county council is in terms of spending, each line item of money there. And frankly, I think if we were to ask as a forum, we would not necessarily get the most welcome of responses. County councillors might later on want to give a different view on that. And yes, I know you've met the city council and you spoke at council last week, and I think you were suggested that you should refer your comments initially into the local plan and probably more relevantly into the consultation that will inevitably come forward as and when the Sir John Moore Barracks development comes forward. And of course, it's in the gift of the I forgot the name of the DOI, I think it is, as to whether it does come forward. We assume it will in due course. Okay, right. So unless members have got any other further comments on that, we'll take those items, as I say, Winchester Avenue and the flooding a bit later on. And what else? The other one, yeah, I think that will be probably it. City councillors city officers will talk to the S106 update a bit later on. Okay, shall we move on to an update from Carla? But before we do that, I think there's some relevant information we need to hear from the city council officers. So Ruth, would you like to update us on the occupation numbers, as this is an important matter of fact, as it were, that is relevant to some of the updates that we're likely to get, including related to the Spine Road. So Ruth, can you join us on the floor?
Yes, Chair, can you see me?
Oh, I can't, but
Oh,
I don't know if that means you're in a square in the
okay.
screen.
You can hear me. I'm here.
I can hear you.
You can be
you.
seen,
Carry
Ruth,
on.
thank you. You
You've
can
come
be seen.
forward.
Oh, okay, fine. So I can confirm the council tax records for Kings Barton indicated last week, I think it was Wednesday the 18th, that there were 618 occupations on the site, which is obviously the trigger for the various 106 agreements. So this is an increase from, I think at the last forum it was about 562, so an increase from that point.
Great. And there are, I think you identified 6 unoccupied as well, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But because the triggers are based on occupations, we take the lower figure at this point. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for that. So Ian or Viv, would you like to open up your mics and your video and talk, provide us an update from your perspective? And I guess it would be useful if you could talk to the phase 2A play area, mugger. I think would be interested in the phase 2B playing fields or recreation area and what you're thinking in terms of a level of consultation on how it's laid out and so on. And I think it would be useful if we could hear about your work on dealing with the flooding concerns. I'm sure there are other questions that will come up. I know we're all interested to know about the village centre amenities, the shops and the pub and so on. But I'll leave it with you to lead us through.
Okay, that's fine. So we've got myself, Viv, and Alison Thompson, who's head of planning, so to join us today, just in case there's any relating questions. So just quickly on the play area of 2A, we're looking to get that open by the end of the year. So Antonio did mention that our previous opening of play areas hasn't been as good as it could be in a timely fashion, so we're looking to right those wrongs moving forward and get that sorted. Before I hand over to Viv, I was going to just talk about the flooding issue that was mentioned earlier, that this happened on the 1st of August. As you know, that there was unprecedented rainfall on that day. I think a lot of Winchester city centre flooded as well, so it was quite significant. So I was made aware of this. I had a look at the photographs that we discussed this with the Residents Association, and we've had a look at what we believe the situation to be, and we've come to the conclusion that the area that had a lot of water, resting water or standing water, even though it sort of went down after a couple of hours, it is not acceptable. It shouldn't have done that. And the reason why it did do that is because the wearing course is not yet on the main spine road. So where the water at the as you go up the hill towards the ridge should discharge into the swales via grips. Those grips are in effect channels that come off the curb line. Because they are slightly higher, because the wearing course is not yet installed, what's happened is that the water missed the first few swales and ended up dumping into the end swale. So what we've done, we've taken measures to deal with that. So we've added a couple of gullies in the end swales, but also lowered the grips so that they will accept water in this temporary situation when the wearing course is not yet on. So we don't expect that to happen again. I mean, admittedly, it was unprecedented rainfall in a very short period of time, but we wouldn't expect that to happen again. We're pleased to say that no properties were affected, but I do recognise that would be a concern. Having seen the pictures, I wasn't there myself, that it would be concerning for residents. So we have addressed it, we've dealt with the issue, and it shouldn't happen again. So that's all I've got to say on that matter, unless everybody's got any questions. But can I hand over to Viv now?
Should we just open it up for questions
Yep,
from
please do.
members here? Got one from Councillor Todd, who I know was wrestling with flooding elsewhere in Winchester.
Yeah, I'm one of the county councillors for the city, and the experience of people has been that these sort of never flooding events are coming ever more frequently, and they've really started becoming quite annual occurrences since 2002. But you know, I've been dealing with streets where they had no flooding, people who'd lived there for 30 years and have had 3 or 4 flooding events since. So will you be designing to cope with that level of flooding? I recognise, you know, if houses aren't flooding, that's really important, because that's where really serious action needs to start happening, or buildings start getting flooding. But will your engineering standards and the standards you build to assume that that kind of rainfall will happen again, and that it's not something we're not going to see for 50 years?
You okay for me to respond to that now? Yep.
Oh, sure. Yes, I should.
Okay.
Should
So
pass it over to you.
yeah, I mean, we design to the necessary codes, and those codes are constantly changing. My off the top of my head, it's allows for 40% climate change plus 10% urban creep. You know, that's what the Environment Agency require us to do. Off the top of my head, I couldn't confirm whether that is exactly what is designed here, because of course that was approved some time ago, but I would imagine that it's going to be there or thereabouts. So, but I think, Martin, what's happened, as I explained, that the system isn't yet fully functional. So we're in a sort of betwixt and between scenario where it's not functioning wholly as it should, but it will do at the end. So, but we've taken measures to avoid this temporary situation happening again, where excess standing water is there. So, to answer your question, yes, we design to the current codes, and the current codes are very stringent where this is in this regard.
So is it, just for clarification, is it your belief that if everything had been built to the standard, the finished standard, that there would have been no standing water and none of the issues that we saw in the pictures that were shared?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's a useful clarification.
Absolutely.
So if I could just build on that, so I think what you're saying there is the bottleneck for the water disappearing was in the lower grips. The grips at the bottom of the hill just couldn't cope with the volume of water.
Yes, the swales, not the grips.
Yeah,
so it's the swale. So it's the ditch in effect that was getting too much water to it, because the ditches or swales further up the hill weren't getting their share of the water. All the water was coming down to the bottom ditch. So in reality, it coped remarkably well, bearing in mind it was taking the majority of the water. So that's a, you know, if you want to, you know, looking with your, you know, glass half filled there, that's a very big positive. So but we've taken steps to avoid that from happening again. So it's not until these events occur that you realize that actually the water wasn't getting to the areas it should have got to. So,
and just, you know, this is a layperson's question, so I know it may be done, but if the grips at the top had let the water into the swale at the top, wouldn't that water run down the swale into the same place, or does it get routed in different ways, or does it just hold it?
Ultimately, the water in the swale dissipates into a perforated drain underneath the swale, which then ultimately all links up and then discharges it into the Southern Water surface water sewer. So the idea of the swale is to slow the water down from dissipating into the ground, therefore into the pipework, therefore into the main sewer, to avoid surcharging the main sewer in events of flood like you had on the 1st of August. So it's all designed correctly, it's all installed correctly, but it's not yet complete. So as I said, we've made some adjustments to suit the temporary arrangement that we currently find ourselves in.
I got it. All right. Councillor Porter, would you like to come in?
Thank you. I didn't actually come out there because I was too busy brushing water away from my own house at the time. But did the bottom suds area actually flood at all in the area where we have the summer fete, for instance? And also, I looked in the photographs and it looked as if the side routes were also wet, very, very wet. Have they been installed with new grips along those as well? Are they at the same places that the other grips are on the other side?
No, so what's happened is, well, one, I don't know the answer to your first question because nobody's made me aware of that, so not aware of that. But in answer to your second question, where the flooding occurred is at the lowest point of the road. So if you can imagine, if that's a dip, you know, all the water's going down there. It's not being able to get off the road higher up the hill.
I understand that. It's just that the side roads, the service roads, looked in the pictures as if they were wet too.
Yeah, they were, because the water was overtopping the swales,
right. Okay.
Because they were filling up when they shouldn't have been filling up. So that's the reason why that's occurred.
Okay. Okay. No, I understand. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Ian.
Okay.
Right.
So yeah, only that Viv was going to answer a couple of questions. I think you had a couple of other. I can't remember what they were really. To do the
other than the mugger, it was moving on to the phase 2B playing fields, the recreation, and we'd love to hear about the village centre.
Is that something you can answer, Viv?
It's usually we do a double act, Ian, but tonight it's going to be a triple act. So Alison, our colleague, as you've already introduced her as head of planning at Carla and dealing with all things Kings Barton. So Alison is going to come onto the call in a second and just talk about a couple of the points in relation to those planning matters. That's right, Alison, over to you.
Yeah, I'm on. Hopefully everyone can see me.
Hi, Alison.
Hello. So in terms of the sports play area pitches on phase 2B, we're hoping to do some consultation by the end of this year. We're working with our technical team, which is headed up by Ian, just to get a consultant who can actually design the pitches, just to make sure that we up-spec the drainage so they're more usable throughout the year. So we'll hope to go out for consultation, but as agreed, it'll be with Manley Road residents, Winchester City Council, and the parish council. So we hope to circulate some drawings, as I said, towards the end of this year.
Okay. And does that consultation, does it cover sort of, for want of a better word, the minor equipment, you know, like, there's talk about having a path round, a track that you could kind of, not a running track, but a casual track where you could run round, and there might be pieces of equipment along the way or benches. Is that
the trim trail?
The trim trail, that's the word.
Yeah, it will include all the details, so you'll be able to understand what we're proposing. It might not be the detailed engineering drawings to discharge the conditions, but it'll be sufficient that people can see what the equipment is and where it will be located.
Right. Okay. And you're targeting that by the end of the year, so to actually be consulting or to be ready to consult?
To be ready to consult, so
early next year then, in practice?
No, I'd like to say we could actually, we should be able to consult, if we need to, depending on the level of detail that we need to go out, just to explain to particularly Manley Road residents and the parish. But yeah, we'll target by the end of this year to consult with those three parties.
Okay, I can look forward to that for Christmas.
Absolutely, early Christmas present.
Right. Okay, and any questions from other members? Mike, I'm gonna let you in here, but strictly speaking, you're not a member. Do you want to get your question in, and then I'll hand over to Jackie to follow in a question.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, my question is really that, of course, the playing fields are the concern of all residents in Kings Barton, not just the residents on Manley Road. So can we please have a consultation involving all the residents? Thank you.
I think like I was going to say Headbourne Worthy Parish Council represents all residents, but you could argue there are probably 40 dwellings that are not technically in Headbourne Worthy, but I'm sure they will not mind if those residents engage with the Headbourne Worthy consultation. But Councillor Porter, would you like to chime in?
Actually, I support Mike's view. There's a lot of people that will live at the corner of Roman Drive and around that area who may be affected. And so I think that actually they do deserve a voice in this. They are also looking at the site and may be affected by noise and light in that area. I do think it's something that we ought to be taking slightly wider than just Manley Road.
I certainly agree with that point. Where's Alison? Would you what are the implications in terms of broadening out the consultation for you? Can you do that?
Would like to discuss that with Winchester as well. The condition is actually to discharge the detail, so it's not to open up the principle of the development, which if you widen it, people might say we don't want the pictures there, where it's actually the detail. So I'm just conscious that I don't want to go out and do wider consultation when it's limited to what people can consult on. But that is something I can pick up with Winchester after this meeting.
Okay. I see your point. You need to manage expectations, and part of the role of a city council and a parish council is to try and limit expectations to whatever is within scope of the consultation, rather than taking it well beyond what is the scope of that. I think that's what you're sort of saying. Okay, hopefully my words are correct. Councillor Porter, did you want to carry on?
Yeah, I just want to come back on that. I appreciate exactly what Alison said about it's the detail rather than the principle. Absolutely, completely agree. But if you look at the people that are living on Roman Road, they are no further away than the people on Manley Road, and I do think that there's a case to be made for all of those people who will be looking at the site directly as well, to be involved in that conversation. So I would welcome a constructive conversation about how far that goes, how much far that consultation goes.
Okay, you okay with that, Alison?
Yeah, absolutely happy to. Okay. Yeah, we can widen out the scope of who we actually consult. Yeah.
Barton.
Yeah, I was just wondering, in terms of the duration of the consultation, how long the period will be, and what you're expecting at the end of that in terms of the input to the development of the actual sports facilities themselves.
The consultation wasn't intended to be a formal consultation, so with boards it was more of we would circulate the details and then people would feedback their comments. I think as Councillor Porter is wanting us to extend it to Roman Way, we probably need to discuss the consultation strategy just to make sure we give a clear deadline. As I said, we need to be clear that it is just the detail of the equipment and the location. So I think if we can, what I'll probably do is do a note separately following this meeting, just to sort of say, this is what we're expecting. We're hoping to consult by the end of this year. We would give 3 weeks consultation period, and then that would feed into the final design, and then we can feed that into the discharge condition details.
You okay with that, James?
Is that not specified in those conditions, or is this something that you're then discussing and confirming before the consultation takes place?
So I'm sorry, I wasn't. In terms of consultation, we don't have to consult on a discharge condition. We're just doing it because we appreciate the sensitivities, and we just want to get people's buy-in to the design. So discharge conditions we don't normally consult on, but we've said we will in this instance.
Is that clear enough, James? Okay, right. Thank you, James. If you could take your hand down, that would be helpful. Okay, Alison, that's great. I think what you're saying, just to replay that back to you, make sure I've understood it, is the intention here is to, in effect, it's a reserve matters thing. You could technically discharge the conditions without doing the consultation, but because it's sensitive, you want to just go through a lightweight consultation that will be tweaking, gives some scope to tweak around the edges. That's the right phrase. But we want to be careful to manage expectations very, and limit them. Okay, understood. Right. I think that covers the phase 2B playing fields. Any further questions around that, or should we move on to any update you can give us, Viv, Ian, Alison, with respect to the village centre, for want of a better word, the shops, pub, parking area, etc.
I'm happy to jump in there on behalf of my colleagues. A nice short answer to this one, really. And Ian won't thank me for saying this, but it's wholly reliant on the delivery of the Winchester Avenue. I can see the smile on his face, but essentially that's the short answer, and it's the one, as I'm sure members and the public can appreciate, to take forward the detailed design and the neighbourhood centre and the mixed uses that are going in there is reliant on having some certainty that the avenue, the details of the avenue are agreed and come forward. And by that I mean where the access route, the access parcels, the access positions into each of the mixed uses, and timings of when the road will be open, so that the stakeholders, the end users, have got that certainty. We can get them into contract, and they have, as you say, certainty that the road will be open, because ultimately they're looking for the consideration of when they can get themselves on board and deliver each of those parcels alongside ourselves, and bring forward the vibrancy of the neighbour centre that we all want to deliver. We want to see it come forward, but these things have to happen in sequential order, and the next stage of that is the technical approval and details and delivery, and for our team to get on there and deliver that connection between the two, between 1A, 1B, 2B, etc.
So I can just add to that. So we're far advanced with our technical approval process on the 2B element of the road. So that's the bit that links 1A to 1B to 2A. And the expectation is that we'll be getting technical approval in the next month or so, and we will be looking to start that road straight away. So there's no delay expectation from our perspective. We're keen to get that element linked up, as I'm sure all the residents are too. So the idea is that we would be looking to get the 1B linked with 2A as soon as we get technical approval, and we're very close to that. So the likelihood is that there's probably 4 months to 5 months worth of work there. So the idea is that we'll be having that open somewhere in the spring. So at the moment, until we get technical approval, I can't commit to the actual month, but I anticipate it to be around the sort of April, May time at the latest. So that's what we're aiming for.
Okay, now,
And
sorry,
Chair.
wanted to jump in.
Sorry, Chair, to jump in there. I'd seen that Councillor Rutter has asked the question on the chat about getting up-to-date information. I believe that may have been supplied or sent across by Winchester City Council already, but just reminding the forum that we did undertake some public consultation on the neighbourhood centre and the revised emerging master plan for that way back in 2022. Many of you were able to attend that, and at that exhibition we presented the revised proposal for the neighbourhood centre, that the position of the community centre as we see it coming forward, and I believe some plans for the community centre. But by certainly the question there was asked about whether we could include dimensions of that. That would be easy for us to provide, showing the area of the hall that was proposed at the time and the dimensions of that space. There's obviously a fair bit of other background information which is all linked to the proposal for the community centre and the other mixed uses at the time as well. But yeah, we could provide that.
Okay, I'm just I see Antonio, Councillor De Stefano has his hand up. Antonio, do you have a question here in relation to what we've just been discussing?
Yes, I have basically two questions. The first one is for Ian. Please, can you clarify the difference between the road approval condition in 1A, 1B, 2A, and 2B? Because according to my information, the road building has been approved in April 2024. Now, I appreciate that you need the technical approval for the detail, but basically, in terms of road building, is the same condition of the other stretch of the avenue, where you don't have a technical approval as well. This is the first question. The second question is regarding the community center. Yes, it's true that there was a revised version of the community that was presented in 2022. But in 2022, we were said that the building sides couldn't change the base of the changed just the positioning, but not the sides of the community center specifically, because we were constrained by the original design. And this is what we say that we are not, the working group that has been working on disagree with, because the size of the community center is not adequate considering the 2,000 dwellings of Kings Barton and comparing with other estates that have a community center, estates that are much smaller and have a comparable community centers.
Ian, would you like to have a go at that? Certainly the first part of that. You might want to throw the second one off to one of your
Well, I will
colleagues.
throw out the second one to my colleagues, but I'm not quite sure I understood what the question was on the first one. I'm sorry, Antonio, can you just clarify what is it actually you're asking?
Yep. Basically, why you are not, what is stopping you from building the stretch of 2B of the Spine Road?
What is, because we haven't yet got technical approval.
But is it correct that you don't have a technical approval also for 1A, for 1A, for 1B, and for 2A where you built the road?
That's exactly correct. So the 1A and 1B less complex than 2B. 2B has lots of crossings, lots of elements that related to the neighbourhood centre and all the stuff that's going on there. It is not a simple bit of road. It is much more complex. So the risk of getting things wrong is higher. So I'm saying we need to get technical approval. We're very close, Antonio. There's been some recent queries on a number of things which we are looking to respond to imminently with our engineers, and we believe that to be the final queries. So we're very close. It should happen in the next few months. So,
and presumably, Ian, if the difference in a way is that if you were to have gone ahead without that technical approval, the risk would be on Carla's hands, and the cost of correcting it would be a lot more difficult, a lot more expensive than.
You're absolutely right, because and Antonio's fully aware of this. We did that in 1B where we'd thought we'd agreed with the council that it was going to have granite sets in the middle of the road and all that sort of stuff, and it turns out that's not what's going to happen. So ultimately we had to build a spine road in order to get some houses built, so we took a risk on it. That was a big risk and it's backfired on us. We've got the same on 1A. 2A, less of an issue, because by then we had a better understanding of what was likely to be the approved design. Yeah. 2B is much more complicated. There's it's a different road makeup, different curbs, different you've got all sorts of different crossings. It's not a risk that we're prepared to take. However, just to on the plus side, we've engaged early on with highways, because we know that it's a long process to get technical approval. We've engaged with them early on, and we think through that process we've worked out all the details. We're very close to the end now, so I think it's all positive.
Okay, Now, before you spin that question around the district's, the community centre building to somebody else, Ian, I wondered if Jackie was going to come in with something about the Spine Road, because if you were, let's tackle that now, and we'll deal with the community centre bit separate. Jackie.
Thank you. And I think it comes back to the bus service actually, because we're going to have to take it into the bottom section, then go along the Andover Road, then go into the top section. And people are going to get used to that bus service, but everybody wants it to be more efficient and to go through the central Spine Road. So if we're planning, it's useful to have a date by which we're planning to change that, so that when that road is open, it can start running that immediately. Because at the moment it's quite bad value because it has to go into the top and into the bottom. So it'll last, the money will last much longer when we know that we've got to a point where the road can go through. Even if there's no actual physical stop in that section, it would be really helpful. So can you keep us informed really, so that we can amend the bus route as it goes through? That's the first part. And the second part is that I know that the bus stops on the current two roads, even though that the roads aren't complete and surfaced, the buses are running down the main roads in the lower and upper parts of Kings Barton. Are you confident that the buses can run up and down any ramps that may still exist? And secondly, are you happy about the bus stop positions? Because we only have bus stop positions on one side of the road, not two, because there are no matching opposite bus stops, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So first one is date.
Yes.
Surface. Third one is bus stops.
Okay, so yes, we can obviously keep you informed. I think it will also be very obvious, but Jackie, I'm very happy to liaise directly with you or whoever you need me to keep people posted.
We apparently have to give a 56-day notice of a change.
Okay, okay. It's never easy. Yeah, okay, that's fine. So we can keep you informed, and we meet with Hampshire all the time to discuss this and when the roads will be, be able to open, and they're fully aware of the programme that we and they are working to.
And they're two different departments, and
yes,
sometimes it's just easier.
Okay. Very happy to do that. That's no problem. And yeah, I'm off the top of my head, I can't remember where the bus stops are, but yeah, I mean, this is not something that's new to us, opening roads to allow buses to get through before the roads are, absolutely topped out and finished. So we have a number of sites where this is the norm for us. So certainly we're very happy to make sure that the road is suitable for buses access and all that sort of thing, and bus stops. So
thank you.
Okay. Now, just again, before we lose the thread of that conversation around the road, and we flip the other question over to the community centre topic, Ian, you kind of gave, so the impression I took away from that was that it could be next April, I think, when the road is open, or there is a road built through.
Yeah, just to clarify, the bit I'm talking about is the bit through 2B that links 1B with 2A. So we got 2A. Yeah, so the two, so it from where the school is to where the ridge is, that bit that's in effect in front of the school doesn't exist. So it's linking those two bits of road up. So
right. So does that mean it will be a through road or not?
Yes, it does. The reason why I'm hesitant, it's the through road, but not in its final form. What I mean by that is that if you were going from south to north, you'd come up the Andover Road. You can optionally dive through our site, go all the way up to the top of the ridge, down past the school, and then get to Manley Road and turn left at Manley Road, and then get back out onto the Andover Road. This is, I'm not talking about the bit north of Manley Road that goes out to the Harestock Road junction. That is intending to be open a bit later on.
Okay.
Not much later on, but a bit later on.
That's a helpful distinction. And I presume by open, I mean anyone living in the northern section, formerly known as Phase 1B, could drive through to the south without having to go out through Manley Road.
Correct.
Okay, right. Now that's actually, if I go back to March when we had our last Kings Barton Forum, we were talking then about early 2026, and I would guess then what you were referring to then is when the whole thing is right the way through with the northern junction as well. Is that right?
Yes, that's still the case. That's still what we're working to.
Okay, good. All right, so it's effectively it will be an interim step, and it will make, from the point of view of people living in 1B and also the bus service, the minibus service, it will smooth that out. It won't be completely finished, but at least it will give them an alternative way out other than Manley Road.
Yes.
Through to wherever they want to go to.
So just to clarify, Steve, just very quickly, we are aware that it's a frustration for residents.
Yeah.
But what we don't want to be doing is installing the 2B section of road at risk and then having to close it again to redo it because we've built it because the plan's changed. It's important for us to get agreement of what we're building. We build it only once, and therefore it maintains the access through and allows people that sort of connectivity between north and south. So we're aware it's a frustration for people. We want to get it done as quickly as possible. I've got a program sat in front of me, pushing to get this technical approval. It's already been priced. We're almost ready to go as soon as we get the technical approval.
Okay. I'm just wondering whether we should bring Joe Holmes in now, as we're talking quite a bit about roads, or just otherwise we have to reopen this subject a bit later on. Joe, are you on the call, or is it Joe or somebody else?
I'm still here. No, it's Joe today, Joe.
Okay, Joe. Because I think we're having a conversation which, obviously it's Carla's job to lead and drive the project, but Hampshire Highways, through you with your role in Hampshire Highways, is critical to getting this spine road through. So you haven't objected to what Ian said about being very close on specifications, so I assume you're pretty good with that. I think I think what the public are very concerned that this spine road isn't coming through at the time or at the trigger point at the occupations level that was expected. So what the questions, I've got some questions, and I know Councillor Batho might have some questions around what assurances can be given that actually it's going to be early next year, when at least we can see how it's starting to shape up. Or could this all get delayed again? It's a question of trust. We've been asked about this countless times, and we tend to refer to, well, there's an S106 agreement between the County Council and Carla. Both are locked into it together. Both will make sure it's done. And quite clearly, the spine road isn't going to happen by 6:50. The northern junction isn't going to happen by 6:50. So what I'm looking for is what's happening now to kind of create that assurance that we're all on track and it is going to happen, and there are consequences to one side or the other if there's a mess up or there's something not happening. I'm not articulating it terribly well, but what can you give me? What can you give the public? Because that's what we're really asking the question for.
No, well, I suppose to start off with, I can assure everybody that Carla and the authority are working very proactively in the background to progress all of the agreements that are required to make up the spine road. And there are quite a few. There's a number of 38s and a number of 278s. And as Ian has suggested, there's been a lot of progress over the last couple of months to ensure that the schemes are coming forward with no outstanding technical comments, and also the legal agreements are being progressed in the background. I think what we'll find will happen is a sort of a domino effect. I think as soon as one goes and is fully technically approved with legal agreements, they'll all come forward at very much the same time. So I think that's one of the reasons why it's difficult to show the public that there is progress, because they're very much interlinked and intertwined. So I think that's one thing to note. Going back to sort of assurances on certainty on timescales, it's very difficult to confirm whether the programme is going to be delivered to the programme's timescales as it's set out currently. What we can do is say that we're working on the programme together to ensure that we both feel, both sides of as the developer and as the authority, that we're happy with the timescales and the programme as it is, and we're hopefully setting up a session soon to go through the programme in the next level of detail with the delivery in mind, because there's a lot of timescales, a lot of items in terms of other elements that need to be delivered at the same time to ensure that everything works and is delivered at the same time, to allow the road to switch over. I think the biggest risk to this fine road and the delivery and the construction is something that's probably outside of everybody's control here, and that's potentially, we don't really understand it yet, but that's potentially the works at on the M3 junction line with the DCO, the development consent order with National Highways Works. There is potentially a clash in terms of the traffic management diversions. We don't understand what that looks like yet, but the diversion route, the official diversion route, will likely come through at the northern part of the junction, so potentially will conflict with the northern works at the northern junction there. So that for me is one thing just I'd like to highlight at this moment in time, but we don't have a full understanding yet, but we are working closely with National Highways, and we have got an officer that's liaising with them within the authority, and we are working hard to try and understand what that traffic management will look like and how it may or may not impact the delivery of Winchester Avenue.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question, but before I do that, I'm just going to invite members who might have questions for you on this subject to kind of get your hands up. I guess, we're all aware that the county council has some substantial financial challenges ahead of it, and what often happens when an organisation, private sector or public sector, has got financial challenges is, managers go and cut where they can or they think they can. So my question for you, Joe, is has Hampshire Highways and the legal team around it, because it's quite clear it's not just about highways, it's legal and all sorts of things. Have you got other resources there, and is it a sufficient priority that the bottleneck isn't going to be in Hampshire Highways in facilitating Carla getting this job done?
No, I can assure everybody that we don't currently have an issue with resources within the team. We have an allocated engineer that's working pretty much full time on this development, and I hope Ian would agree that we haven't found a bottleneck with that engineer. He's very dedicated and really understands the importance of the work going on here. Every single submission obviously has to get put out depending on consultations required with our internal consultees, so our subject matter experts, street lighting, drainage, geotech. The majority of that's been done because there can be, admittedly, sometimes a bottleneck there because they're shared across the whole of the authority. They don't just work on developer schemes, but the majority of that work has been done or is well advanced, and therefore I don't believe there should be a hold up there. And I'm not aware of any plans to cut resources in the teams that are dealing directly with the developers' works currently.
Yeah, okay. I was more thinking in terms of more about priorities. It's sort of, if you are strapped for a resource, you have to make, managers have to make decisions. Which one do we do? Which one do we prioritise? So, okay, I am reassured by your words there, but I'm going to throw the floor open to Antonio to ask his question, and then Jackie Porter to ask her question. Antonio. You there, Antonio?
Two very quick questions. The first one is for Joe. Actually, are both for Joe, probably. The first one is regarding last time at the last forum meeting in March 2024. I appreciated, I liked quite a lot your detailed summary of the condition of the technical approval for each individual area, for each part of the spine road. Please, in a way that we can report to residents, can you tell us what has been approved since, which technical approval has been achieved since March 2024? This is the first question. The second one is regarding street lighting. I've been observing that in the remedial work for 1B, the street lighting in the secondary roads has been changed, and basically now there is a difference in what are the public road street lighting and private road, because the lampposts are basically different in locations, in size, and in color. While in the new 2A phase, the street lights are constant, the same I assume will apply for 1A. Instead, for 2A, the street lights are all the same in all area. Is this planned to be changed, or is going to stay like this? Then 1A and 1B will have a different type of street light in private area and in public area. I finish.
Thank you, Antonio. I'm not sure if that's more of a question for Ian, and maybe the spec side of it is for Joe. But Ian, do you want to say
I could answer that. Simplistically, I can't remember all the exact detail, but the reality is that the spec that we'd installed was not what the spec that the council wanted. So we had to change the street lights where the roads are going to be adopted. But by the time we were doing 2A, we knew what the spec was, what the council wanted, so we didn't have to change them. So it's one of those things frustrating for us, because we used a consultant that was supposed to know what the council wanted, but that's not Joe's fault, that's not the council's fault, that's our consultant's fault. So and it cost us a lot of money. So it's one of those things that I understand it's, it was frustrating for us, but the reality is that we've had to change where we needed to change. We aren't going to change where we don't need to change the streetlights. So that's the simplistic answer.
Then sorry if this is the final 1A and 1B will have two different types of street lights in public and in private area. Is the final design?
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Are we okay, Antonio? Right, Jackie, Councillor Porter.
Yeah, thank you. Mine's just a notice of something actually, which is that the Kings Barton Residents Association and excuse me, and Hebburn Parish Council are very keen to put some additional works into the streetlights along the main Winchester Avenue, so that they can have Christmas lights at some stage in the future. Are you all aware of this? Yes. Okay. I think
Joe is saying yes, Ian's saying no.
Yeah,
yes,
I'm not.
So I'm just putting out this because we've been trying to find someone who can take responsibility for this conversation. It's proving a bit more complicated than I thought it was going to. So I'm just putting it out there just to give you notice that I'm going to be sending, now some people have nodded and some people have gone no. I'm going to send an email to you all tomorrow to see if we can work this out between us.
So you're after some street lighting?
No, the street lighting usually has a system whereby you can plug into it for a period of time for Christmas lighting.
Right.
Kingsworthy has it, I know they do, so just for some lights, and I'm trying to find out, because at the moment, if it's done before the lights go up, you just fit the unit into the bottom. If you don't do it before the light goes up, you have to get up some sort of cradle system in order to fit something much more complicated, and so we're trying to make it easy to achieve this. And I know they've got a lighting contractor they're interested in using, which is the same one that does Winchester. So it probably needs, I've discovered it needs probably a technical conversation between her and whoever's the lighting engineer installing the lighting.
Yes. Yeah, I think I think there will need to be a conversation. It gets further complicated because of because if it's adopted or not adopted, if it's in the process of getting adopted, if the streetlight gets damaged by somebody, then the council won't adopt it. There's all those conversations to be had. So possibly not insurmountable, but
it sounds. I realise that
it's not quite as easy as hanging some Christmas lights up. But
but I do know the contractor does Christmas lights for Romsey, Winchester, lots and lots of other places. So I'm just sending, it's an opportunity just to say to everybody, I'm going to send notice to everybody to say I've tried from one direction, but actually I'm going to try from the people actually on the site, if that's okay. Thank you.
It looks to me like Alison's got her hand up and she wants to make your wish come true, Jackie.
Oh,
yeah. Ian, we didn't raise this with you, Ian, so apologies, you weren't aware of the background of this. This was something that was raised by the parish council, and I did speak to our engineering manager, who has spoken to Hampshire, and there is an issue on, as Ian said, about the adoptability. If we put it in now, that Hampshire might not be able to adopt it because it's a piece of equipment. It's not the lights, Ian. It's actually a piece that they can actually put into a column now, and then they can put the lights in. So I think it's the adoptability and the liability that, unfortunately, they've just said wait until it's adopted, and then it can be addressed. But I appreciate there's a cost implication. It's cheaper to do it now. Yeah. But that was we have had that discussion with Hampshire.
I think Joe's got a comment.
Yeah. And in the spirit of sustainability, how about looking at some solar Christmas street lights instead of having to plug them in at all?
Well, it's very.
That's all
I don't know, but it's that's why I'm saying I wanted to put the technical person from the street lighting company, the decorative lighting with you, because I'm not technical enough to know. But I do know that Kingswood is on about 6 lights.
Let's see if Joe can advise on a way through this conundrum to allow Christmas light ready street lights.
So the advice that we've been given by the street lighting team is that basically they require a change to the column. They need a hole being drilled through to the column and some amendments. So that would be a move away from what's currently been technically approved. So it would be for the developer to decide whether it wants to amend and jeopardise the potential technical approvals of some of the items that have already.
I can answer that question now, Joe.
Yes, we've got quite a few that have got no further outstanding comments, waiting to be technically approved, along with the legal agreements being put in place. And a change like this would potentially set that back a step.
Right. I get the message.
So it would be more straightforward to wait until they're adopted.
Okay, I'm going to talk to the streetlight person and see if we can find a practical way through this. Okay, thank you, and we'll investigate solar viv.
Yeah, well, hopefully the power
that's a really useful conversation. Probably would have taken me 2 weeks to eke out. So thank you very much indeed.
Hopefully the power being used by the streetlights is solar or wind power anyway. So. But yeah, I think these things always look simple, but actually they're more complicated than you ever imagine. Thanks for that, all 3 of you, for addressing that point. Now, okay, let's have we got any more questions around? Oh, Johnny, sorry, Councillor Morris. I nearly moved on. Councillor Morris, over to you.
Oh yeah, no. Looking at the section 106 tracker, the completion of the access to the primary school seems to have has a different sort of trigger. It's almost conditional, saying that you can't occupy phase 2B until permanent access to the primary school has been constructed and completed, which is in it's a different format to all the other triggers in the plan. So my question is, how would that work logistically in terms of the sequence of development? Of where do you think, in which part of the process do you think that work will be completed?
Can I answer
I'm
that?
glad. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Councillor Morris. It was a question that was on my mind because I looked at the tracker today. I'll throw it over to you, Ian, because it sounds like you've got an answer anyway, without me complicating it.
The answer is that the 2B road goes in before we start building houses in anger. You know, we've got to get the road helps us, so there's no benefit to delay putting that road in. So and that, I mean, there is permanent access to the school anyway. It's just not being, it doesn't create a loop into the school and then back out again. So I'm not quite sure, Alison might know more than I do about what that condition actually means, because the permanent access to the school exists. If they're talking about it coming directly off the Spine Road, then that will happen as soon as we get technical approval and we're building the. So I think it's a, you know, no disrespect, I don't think it's a bit of a non-point, because we'll have the road in as soon as we get technical approval. So I'm not quite sure it's a problem.
Right. So yeah, my related question to that, Ian, was, yeah, I'm very aware that the temporary access, which is currently being used, and I'm not sure how permanent or temporary it is, but the road that they're currently using, which is it's fine for onesies and twosies of cars, but it is problematic for the volume of cars people that are using it at the moment, and I think that's well understood. So I think when I was looking at that condition, that S106 thing, I was thinking, is there an opportunity to kind of make that a reasonably high priority once you've got that Spine Road in, to get that particular piece in to the school for the long-term permanent access? And is that part of the 2B project, 2B road project, or is that a separate thing that's going to be dealt with later?
I mean, there are some houses to be built there as well, so we've got to you've got to have safe access for our construction traffic to get to those that bit of site where there's a bit of a pit there, so that will need to be filled up, piled, houses built, and I think after that point the access road will be available for the school to get back out onto the Spine Road. Because we've got to make sure that, you know, people accessing the school are safe. So we can't have construction traffic and school traffic mixing. That's a no. So
no, I get that safety side of it, but there's a safety risk where they are now. And it's not that, it's just people's behaviour creates a safety risk. You know, on a wet day when you've got too many vehicles in there, someone's reversing to get out, and you know, a child is getting out of someone else's car, you've got a risk there. So are you saying the permanent access will create a loop, so in theory people could drive in one side and come out the other?
Yeah, so yes, so just to be clear on the terminology here, that there is a permanent access already in place. We're talking about the rest of the access, so which in effect creates an in and out. I mean, it's not actually an in and out, but it could create a circular route, let's put it that way. I mean, at the risk of sounding controversial, you know, if it's, you know, Carla cannot be held responsible for people's poor driving, and if they feel that, you know, that it's a you know, for whatever reason, if it's wet, you know, or, you know, how about walking to school? How about parking a little bit further away and walking to school? You know, it's, you know, that was the original plan for that school, was it was to serve children of the development. That hasn't been the end result, but you know, if you live locally, to walk to school is a positive thing, not a negative thing, which will reduce the traffic and therefore reduce any health and safety risk that's perceived by people for poor driving or not being able to, you know, negotiate that bit of road.
I appreciate it's, you're not responsible. Carla is not responsible for individual driving behaviour, but because it's an in and out jump road, and it hasn't been designed to be in and out road. Yeah, you can do it, but once
it's a two-way road, Steve, isn't it? It's a two-way road.
But there's no turning area as such, so you do get a bottleneck there, and people tell me that, and your point about parking a little bit further away. I certainly know that people do that, but I also hear people complaining that it all just gets jammed up. So, it is what it is. When the original thing was designed, it was expected to be built out more quickly. So there'd be more families there already. So the school would have a greater proportion of local walking people. So it is what it is. I'm just looking to see what, if we can put a date on or an indication of when you think that extra bit that completes the loop will be done, bearing in mind you've got construction work that you've got to do before you can open it.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm going to have to take away, Steve, and just give it some serious thought. We're aware that it is challenging for people, but you could argue we can't build houses any quicker, so you could argue the school came a bit earlier than it should have done. But it's great. We've got a lovely school, fantastic. We've got lovely homes. It's just that the numbers didn't quite work exactly how it was originally foreseen.
So in terms of order, I take Councillor Batho, Councillor Di Stefano, and then Councillor Porter. But Viv, did you want to come in and just add some colour to those remarks before those questions come in?
Thanks, Chair. It was only just to support Ian's comment there, and just to reiterate that the development of the master plan that's proposed for the neighbourhood centre will improve the situation that's there already. There is a final designed access. The route to the school, the actual physical road that gets to the front of the school, was never intended to go anywhere. It does stop at the front of the school. The loop exists where the junction is further back near the substation. So there will be a loop, as Ian has said, in and out, two-way, in two-way, whichever way you want, in and out around that loop to get to where the substation sits on that top left corner of the school. The road south of that was never intended to go anywhere. But what we have done with the neighbourhood centre master plan is look to put the retail store car park just to the east, the west of that road. So that will provide opportunities for school drop off. People will be able to park in the food store car park, turn their car around in a safe position, and then exit back onto that access road and go on their way. All the discussions we've had with the food store operator have been with that in mind, and that is a design intention that we will intend to take forward as part of the full application for the neighbour centre when it comes forward. So we appreciate it's not ideal, but there is a final design solution there which will mitigate most, if not all, of the concerns that we've got here. But it was never intended to have dedicated school parking, because no primary school, or very little that I know, have dedicated school parking for drop off and pick up. So that will be absorbed by the wider delivery of the master plan as it comes forward, and I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
No, I understand that, and I think that's what everyone's looking forward to, is that point where people who are taking their kids to school can park in that neighbourhood centre car park, drop the kids off, and it's safe enough that they can just walk into school. And of course, we hope there'll be more children that are actually walking from their homes to school. Councillor Batho, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of questions to clarify then. We're talking about the agreements for the spine road to be connecting, is that 1B and 2A? Just wondered, the road certainly on the 2A side, it doesn't have its sort of final course. Is when you complete the road and connect that sort of spine, would the intention be to actually put a top course on all of the road and actually complete it to the final standard? or would the connection part be at the same sort of previous standard as it is currently in 2B? What can the residents expect, you know, when that link is made?
Sorry, are you right for me to answer that? Okay, just to say, but it's a good question, and I think we'll be looking to do the wearing course across the whole lot from north to south in one go. So that would satisfy the council. I think Joe's team would be more comfortable with that. So it's all done in one go. So it's all, you know, you're starting the maintenance period all from one point. So rather than lots of different sections being done. And that would be when we complete the whole road. So that's probably a year further on.
So just for clarification, then, when that section of the spine road is complete by Easter next year, I think you suggested.
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
It will be to the same standard that.
Be to the sub base rather than the wearing course. Yes.
Yeah. So there will still be sort of potholes, or not potholes, but we'll leave that to be worn in later. But for there to be you know, sort of undulations in the road. So even
not undulations. So that arguably the reason why we have roads that are less desirable in 1B as an example is because it's been left as a sub base for a long time, because we were working on the technical approval. We will have the technical approval, then we've got some remedial works to do that, because it's not as we've built it. As I've mentioned before, the granite sets in the middle of the road will be coming out, so there's remedial works to be done. Once those remedial works will be done, then the wearing course will go on. So that's all going to be done in conjunction with doing the north and south junctions, and so we've got this big program looking at doing lots of the works all in, you know, all at the same time, so that we can do the wearing course throughout. So there's a plan. So
I just wanted to clarify that, because I know Councillor Porter was talking about rerouting the bus through the central part of the development. It might then need a conversation with the bus operator to see whether they'd be happy to run across what is clearly not the final surface for the for the road. So I think before we sort of make that sort of plan change, I think we just need to clarify that. The second question I had was to Joe. You mentioned there about the M3 Junction 9 works and the potential for impact on the connection of the northern section of the Winchester Avenue with Andover Road. What sort of considerations are they, and what might be the impact then on that linkage, and might that then also you know, sort of have then an impact on coming back to that question about the final course, whether that final course was done on the southern sections of the development, if the northern section is not going to be open for a period depending on the M3 work. Thank you.
Thank you. So at the moment, we're still trying to understand the picture in terms of what it means, and if there is at all a clash. But if there is a clash with their works, they essentially have priority. So even if road space has been booked in, from our perspective, I believe their scheme takes priority. So if there's any direct clash with any positive traffic management required on the highway to that northern junction, whilst they have a diversion route going through that junction, it's likely to impact the programme to the north. Like I said, it's very early days. It might transpire there isn't a clash. I just want to highlight it as a risk. In terms of the surfacing, I would potentially have to leave that with Ian to answer whether they choose to top out the rest of the site and leave the northern junction, and maybe it's a discussion if and when that happens in terms of their contractors' works.
Okay, right. So Antonio, if you could bring in your question.
Hello. My question is essentially coming back to the school, and it's more than a question, it's an observation. I mean, I live quite close to there, and I can be good witness that the key safety problem there is not so much in the road that goes on the, not only on the road that goes to the school, but in the state, because of course, taking on board with suggestion to park a bit farther away, parents driving children at the school, they end up parking on the state, on runoff road. Now, taking account that this is the route that the bus is going to do. And if you manage to pass a bus 3 p.m. or 8:30 in the morning, I mean, I think it would be a bit challenging with in particular after that school, and I think I'm not sure, but I think that under Carla's suggestion, school has suggested the parents to park in the States, then a runoff road, the play area, children, parents of children, dropping children, leaving the car there, is a not very easy to access road, if I want to say. And I think this is may raise some in first instance some traffic problem, but also in second instance also some safety issue, because there is also a play area for children that are below 12. And I mean, people going out on the road, parked on the road. It's not only a question of driving, it's a question of parking. And this is just an observation, of course. It's not a real question, but just to be precise, that is not the fact that there is not a loop road permitting parents to go inside and to come back, but only there is a cul-de-sac basically. Then parents park outside the cul-de-sac inside in the States, then on runoff road. And I have to say that the fact that we've mentioned the car park of the shop to facilitate the parking of school children parents, is a good demonstration that this is a real problem, because you already have considered that it's a problem. That is a good witness that there is the problem, because your designer have checked and tried to solve this problem. But at the moment, this is still a problem until when the road will be not completed, or at least when there will not be the loop road, avoiding people to have to park on runoff road on the state rather than going to the school.
Okay. Ian, I don't know if you wanted to respond to that or not, but I think earlier on you've taken, you said you'd get back to on the question I raised around timing. I think my feeling on this is it would be very helpful for us to understand when that timing will be. And then I think we've got a challenge of working with the school. And I say we, I'm talking about counsellors in particular here, working with the school on some communication that take into account the actual likely timing of when there might be a better solution. And then we can say, look, to the school, there is going to be this problem. These are the options available to parents. You need to figure out how to communicate this so that parents are not creating, safety risks for the children going to the school. But I think that timing would be a helpful input to that process.
Yeah, understood. I'll look into that.
If you can wave a magic wand and build the neighbourhood centre car park, that would be fantastic. I'm not expecting that. Councillor Porter.
Thank you. I'm going to sit here with the statement that I completely agree with Ian, that there shouldn't be children that have to be driven to school. They should all be coming off their development. Absolutely. There's a temporary problem at the moment because the school only opened 6 years ago, and I think 6, maybe 7 now. And the children, some of those children had siblings at other schools. So at the moment, there's a bit of a temporary problem while parents deliver a child at another school and then whiz down to Kings Barton School. But that should sort itself out as time goes on. unfortunately, more and more children from out of area are also arriving. But I noticed that so I do sympathise with this problem, but I don't want to encourage just more children to be driven to school. I want to make it as difficult as possible so that local children get into that school and they walk to school. That's my prime aim. So paragraph 424, however, the travel plan for the school is not complete yet. And I was just going to ask, is that the responsibility of Carla or of the school? I presume it's the responsibility of the school. So that's something that perhaps we could pass back to Joe to see how quickly that travel plan for the school can be done. It's paragraph 424 in the S106 paper. And I'm just going to mention as well, so at the moment we do have this problem that parents sometimes say they're even having to get to 3 schools before school time. And so I do sympathise with those parents trying to get children in all sorts of directions. But going back to the road question, which is what we were discussing, the ridge pathway, how does it look on either sides of the ridge pathway when the road goes through? I don't understand what that's going to look like. Is there any diagram or description of that?
There is. Ian, do you want to answer it? Shall I?
Oh no, I've spoken enough. If you speak.
There is. I mean, Ian's team are going through the technical process of getting that agreed, but it's like an informal crossing. So I think it's like a zebra crossing from memory. So it's not traffic lit, but it's a formalised crossing.
So will it be some sort of gate or stile or something either side, and then you cross across it, or how does it work? Because it'll stay the same material on the ground as it is at the moment, won't it? So it'll be a countryside path, won't it? The ridge
until it reaches that 10 metre or 6 metre, 7 metre avenue itself.
Then it has some sort of fencing or gate to stop people going across until they can look both ways, I presume.
I don't know.
I can't remember the exact detail.
Okay.
But
I'd be
it is
really interested to
yeah.
know, I think, because obviously that path is used by lots of people that don't live in Kings Barton, and we're currently coping with a dog poo problem. So we're just trying to work out what to do and where and how quickly we can solve it. So that's really appreciated. So I'd appreciate just being kept in the loop with that. That'd be really helpful.
Jackie, if you want to email me, we talk, don't we? So very happy to give you the information.
I think the actual detail is very much just on the avenue section, isn't it, Ian? So beyond that, probably hasn't been got.
But there must be a way because it's a public right of way or whatever. There'll be a crossing of some sort. There'll be a detail of what we envisage there for sure. So I'll dig that out and let you know.
Brilliant. That's really helpful. Thank you.
And when you're having those conversations, it'd be very important to bear in mind that a stile will not be very friendly for anyone pushing kids in pushchair.
We have miles without stiles now.
Absolutely.
Miles without stiles is the in word.
It needs to be bike friendly.
Yeah.
So
okay,
right.
It's not currently a bike path.
Yeah, I know, but hey, we've got to be ambitious. I'm just going to try and hopefully someone's going to answer the phone in the house. Okay, now I just want to come back to something that was raised earlier, which was around the community centre and the sizing of that. Antonio raised that issue of the footprint and the sizing, and I think, was it Viv, you were going to respond to that, but I kept you on the highway stuff.
Any three of the team here could answer that. I can happily have a first go, and I think without second guessing, Alison, do jump in. Without second guessing the concerns or the comments that have been suggested are being made about it, it's probably very impossible for us to start engaging in a debate in this forum about the appropriateness or adequate size or not. I think all we will say at this stage is that the design is in accordance with the section 106 and the agreed specification at the time that was prepared for that. But I know there's a steering group to talk about it. Alison, I don't know if you wanted to mention anything else.
Yeah, the only thing I'd probably just want to clarify is that the 2019 Reserve Matters application for the community centre did go out for consultation. So it was subject to full consultation with Winchester and the parish, and at that time it was determined that the size of it was sufficient for the development, and also the specification was agreed under the 106. So hence that's what we've said, that we're more than happy to engage with the parish. We've given plans, we've discussed this at the separate meetings that we've had with the parish, that we'd be happy to look at some internal changes if the layout doesn't work. But at that time, I just wanted to clarify that it had been through, you know, a consultation process and determined to be of a sufficient size. But we are willing, absolutely willing, as Viv said, to engage and see if there's our amendments that we can make. But as I said, the 106, the specification was agreed at that time.
And maybe, Alison, we could recirculate that that report that was prepared to discharge that planning condition in relation to the 106, which sets out in a very clear way what was anticipated that community building delivering in terms of use, function, size of hall, offices, etc., etc. So as Alison said, there is some flexibility there, but the specification is quite succinct in what that hall, and that was I know it was prepared a while ago, but it was prepared off the back of visits to other community centres in the locality, and it was a brief that was prepared in relation to how some of those were successful or not. But it's a separate meeting. It's probably not one that we can engage in over at the forum at this stage.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think there is a working group being formed centred around the Hebburn Worthy Parish Council, and including Councillor Jane Rutter, who is a city councillor. And I think the intention is to engage with you to find out where the wriggle room is, and to express, you know, based on experience, and we do have experience of running, you know, community centres, and realising that things like storage space are critical to how these things work. So, so I think it's, from what you've said, both of you, Alison and Viv, this falls into a similar category of as the recreation area, which is, it's basically, you know, there's a footprint agreed and it's laid out in the plan. There is scope for a little bit of wriggle room, but you need to manage you're managing expectations down to that. You can't, you know, radically change the footprint. You can't radically lift the ceiling up by, you know, 100%, that sort of thing. And it's probably a lot less than that you can actually alter. Any questions around that particular point? I think not, and I'm aware of time. One question I have for you, which kind of connects the community centre to the Spine Road decision. I haven't quite in my head worked out the implications yet of what, you know, you've been able to talk about tonight about the Spine Road potentially being in place by next Easter. Do you anticipate being able to build the community centre in line with the S106 agreement, where there's a trigger point at 800, or are the effective delays in terms of the Spine Road, is that going to have a knock-on effect to when the community centre building can be built? Don't know if that's a Viv question, Ian, or all of you. You fight it out.
I'm not sure it does. Does it? A team Carla? I think it's the road comes first at the trigger point that's agreed, and then the community centre comes after that, and the community centre's location is immediately off an access which is being agreed as part of the technical approval for phase 2B. So yes, it doesn't, nothing stopping that coming forward.
Right. So if your timing of next Easter is about right, and if you don't suddenly build, you know, at much faster rate than you have done, you're probably going to be about 700 by next Easter, give or take. And I'm not looking for you to confirm, but that gives you another build out of another 100, which is, I guess, roughly a year to build the community centre. Give or take. Is that a good way to think about it?
Yeah, I would say it's a little bit longer than that, but yeah, I mean, it's that sounds about right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right.
So I think what we could do is to have a look at that in a little bit more detail, to then sort of be ready for that at the next meeting, just to have thought about that a bit more, just see, you know, if there's a pressure for it to come forward a little bit earlier, then maybe that's something that we could look at. You know, we're happy to be flexible where we can be, so
I think if it comes forward earlier, I think the parish council in particular will want to know, because they need to think about how, you know, how it's going to be managed. If it goes later, I think, you know, we all probably want to know. Yeah, okay. I'm reassured. Thank you. Okay, I think we've covered all the subjects that I think we had in mind for your CALA update. So thank you very much. And we're going to move on to the County Council Officer update. Joe, apologies for all the background noise. I think someone's rung the doorbell and the dog has gone manic. So, Joe, we've talked a lot about Spine Road and the north and south junctions during the course of the other piece. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that. You probably don't.
Probably not to what we've covered. I had prepared a very brief PowerPoint presentation, just gave a very high level overview of the status of all the submissions that we had. I don't know if you'd find that beneficial now, or whether I can share that after. Chair.
Yes, please. Yes, yeah, that'll be helpful now. So
okay,
I'll get that without even moving my lips.
I'll try and share my screen, and hopefully it all goes to plan. So I won't cover anything in detail, but if anybody wants to stop me, then please do. So the temporary accesses that are in place at the moment, just for information there about, or not far off, getting certificates of completion, which will dedicate the highways links into the development. We've got the 1A and 1B Spine Road sections. They are both essentially at no further comments from a design audit report. So that's what my DAR stands for there, design audit report. And the legal were instructed back in 22, and the legal agreements are progressing well. We've got 2A Spine Road. Again, that's at a stage where in May we've got no further outstanding comments, and legal were instructed a little bit later on that one, but again, that's progressing reasonably well. And then up to the north, we've got the Hairstock Junction that was submitted December 23. We're around the fourth iteration of the design audit report, and legal were instructed just last month. The middle section, again, we're on the second iteration of the design audit report. I will point out that that submission also came through early engagement with our planning officers, so we've had a high amount of involvement in that phase of the Spine Road already, and legal instructed back in April at the same time it was submitted to ourselves. And then we've got the Stony Lane Junction to the south of the development. That submission came in July, and we're at the first iteration, potentially around the second soon, but we're on the first iteration design audit report, again with legal being instructed just last month. And we've also had a sort of preliminary submission for the section of Spine Road for Andover Road, and that's at early stages, and legal haven't been instructed as yet. And then just briefly again, the residential phases. So they are both phase 1A and 1B residential roads. Again, there are no further comments as of May and March this year. And the phase 2A, this submission is in one. I know I broke it out separately before, but essentially we've got both the residential and the Spine Roads all in one. But again, we've got no further outstanding technical comments since May for 2A. We've had a submission for 3A II, and that's at the second iteration of the design audit report. So you can see there's been a lot of progress. And then 2B Spine, that was submitted in with the spine again, we're looking at the residential and the spine in one technical submission, but probably come through in separate legal agreements, and that's going through the second iteration of the report. I think there's around 14 submissions in total, and hence why we've got a dedicated engineer pretty much working full-time on this submission, and a full-time we've also got a client officer dedicated to the development as a whole.
Okay. Is there another build out to fill in that space, Joe? Or
no, I think that's it. I think that's just my full spreading of okay,
text. That's fine. It just that space is just looking like it needs to have something filling it. But
not quite there yet.
Fabulous build out. I love that. Okay, brilliant. Councillor Baffer, you've got a question.
Yes, it was just seeking clarification. The park and ride was indicated on your diagram just previously, but nothing mentioned about any agreements in terms of how that is going to be designed and then delivered. So just wondered if how that would be covered. Thank you.
So, Councillor, the spine roads and the road serving the park and ride is contained within the 278 design audit submission for the Hairstock junction, but the park and ride section itself wouldn't be reviewed by the Highways Authority, as we wouldn't be adopting the park and ride. So we have a boundary up to basically where the entrance to that site is. So we're agreeing the position of the site. The technical details around the access into the park and ride as part of that 278 design audit.
So that begs the question: who is actually doing the specification of that with Carla, other than the Hampshire Highways Authority?
So my understanding is that Winchester City Council officers there will be agreeing the details specifically with Carla.
Okay, let's hold that and see if later on, when we have the City Council officers report, they've got any comments in relation to that, or whether we need to have an action taken away. Antonio, quick question from you.
Very, very quick, just probably could be answered at a later stage, but is it correct that Park and Ride is part of the S106 legal agreement at the 650 occupations trigger?
I don't know that, so I don't know if someone from Carla can answer that.
So I don't know that off the top. I think it is, but Alison, Viv, do you know? I think it is.
I'm the same. I think, can I double check it? I've got the 106 with me, so I can double check.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the City Council officers shortly, and I'm sure Ruth will know what the answer is to that. I think from how you responded, Joe, the County Council has the S278 agreements in relation to the highways and all the access points to facilities like the park and ride, and where the buses might move in and around, but it would actually, the actual park and ride itself is a City Council agreement thing, I think. So we need to catch up with what the City Council's doing. But of course, the park and ride is going to have limited value until we actually have a completely through route, and the Northern Junction is not included in the expectation setting for early, March or April next year, is it? So it's not as imminent as having the road come through. Is that right? No one's disagreeing. Right.
Just my question was just regarding compliance with S106.
Yeah, well, let's pick that up with Ruth in a little while. So, Joe, did you have anything else you wanted to? Ruth is piling in now. So, Ruth, do you want to just pick that one up now then, instead of me asking Joe about buses.
Sorry, yes, just to say it's actually a planning condition on the outline planning permission, condition 36, and for the park and ride to be the details to be provided. And no more than 650 dwellings should be occupied until the park and ride has been completed.
Okay. Right. Alison, you want to come in?
I just found the same one, so it is the condition 36, and that's been partially discharged.
That sounds like planning officer speak between, I guess, Alison and Ruth.
Apologies.
Is it, you know, in practical terms, people will want to know, is it going to happen before 650 or not? And actually, Ruth, who is the who's got that condition? Who's got the S106? Who has Carla got the S106 with? Is it with City Council or County Council?
Well, it's a condition, so, and it's on the outline planning permission, so it's discharged with us. And I didn't do that condition, Alison, but I assume you've discharged some details, but obviously it hasn't been implemented yet, so that means it's partly discharged. Yeah.
Yes, there's certain details that are still remaining. I think it's street furniture. So there's certain details that we have to come back and clarify.
Okay. Right. I think we should, bearing in mind it is 2 minutes to 8, and I'm sure we were all budgeting to be finished before 8 o'clock. I think we should move over to, excuse me, City Council officers. Ruth, so would you like to bring us up to speed with what you were going to cover, and I'll try and recover my voice while you're doing that.
Thanks, Chair. First of all, just to go through the section 106 table, this is something we tabled at the last forum meeting. I have updated it to include, it's on the council website under the agenda. I've updated it just to include the 618 units occupied on the site. In terms of the actual triggers and what that means, there is only, I think, one real change from the table as last circulated, which is one of the additional highway agreements was required to be provided, has now been triggered. It's in relation to the phase 2A of the development. Obviously, we just heard a quite detailed presentation on where the county council is with that. It sounds like that's a very well progressed piece of the agreement, but obviously we'll continue to work with the highways officers to see that resolved. Otherwise, technically, there aren't any more triggers that have been now triggered in the agreement, given the number of occupations on the site. So I'm not sure if anyone has any queries on that, but otherwise that was what I wanted to report, really. Oh, I think you're muted, Steve.
Yeah, I am muted. It's not just that I've lost my voice.
Oh, sorry.
any questions for Ruth here? I think we're okay.
Okay.
So Ruth, yeah, I think you've covered off that tree. Oh, Jackie, Councillor Porter's got a question.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, who is responsible for the trigger about the school travel plan?
I think it's a county council trigger. Yeah. So it's with
clear on it's not clear on the document.
I think it's in column 3. It says whose responsibility it is in the table. So I think it's HCC. So I'm just scrolling back up, but I'm pretty sure it is them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Ruth, you did say that the S106, S278 update report is up on the portal, so everyone now has access to it and can have a look at whatever you want to look at on there. Whatever interests you, you can have a look at. You can follow it through and see which triggers we're getting close to. So maybe next time at the next Kings Barton Forum, we'll have a little bit of delve down into that, spend a bit more time just seeing where we're at, and make sure that things are being, you know, coordinated, and, you know, if things are starting to look like they might get a bit close to the wire, if we need to offer some words of encouragement, maybe we can do that. Now, what else do we need to cover? I think
Sorry, Steve, I was just sorry.
Yeah.
Just before you move on, the only other thing I was really going to mention was just the conditions in terms of what we're discharging at the moment. There's nothing major on this, just to sort of say we're continuing to discharge conditions in relation to various phases of the scheme. They're largely technical conditions, things like drainage, arboricultural report, that sort of thing. Carla have recently submitted a series of conditions relating to phase 2B, which obviously the reserve matters went through earlier in the year in relation to that phase. And so they're now discharging the conditions attached to that consent, just in terms of where we are on conditions currently.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Porter,
Thanks.
did you have another question? Or was that an old hand?
I did. No, it's the new hand. It's the same, a different hand. So on Schedule 2, Part 3, paragraph 4, it says highways agreement for new Andover Road works, Andover Road, Hairstock Road Junction, etc., prior to 625th unit. I just want to check whether that's going to be satisfied or not.
Bearing in mind we're Carla are at 618, so we're talking 7 more dwellings occupied.
Yeah, it's very close. It's probably a question for Carla, but yeah.
Yeah, and something that we'll take away as well, Chair, because it's an obligation with Hampshire as well. So obviously, bearing in mind we are at 618, so it is something that Ruth and I will take away with Hampshire as well.
And Schedule 2, Part 7, that's also prior to 625th unit as well. So we've got and well, the whole of that Schedule 2, Part 3. I think we like to know really whether that is anticipated to be there and it should be publicly aware of that. The public should be aware of that too, because we get a lot of questions about that.
Yes, yeah, that's noted. Yeah, we'll take that away.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think what I would ask in relation to this is X106278 report, which is brilliant. It really does distill things down nicely. You know, it's always a challenge distilling things and keeping the, if you like, the fidelity in it. It might be useful if will definitely be useful if we could have this updated, you know, probably 2 to 3 weeks before the next forum, so that members have a chance to have a delve in it, you know, wrap their heads around how things are interlinked, and then we can perhaps provide a list of questions beforehand, so that officers, whether it's county or city, can at least be primed on, you know, at least a set of questions, and indeed Carla can be primed on questions that are going to come their way in the meeting. So that would be great. Okay, right. Thank you very much, Ruth. Thank you, Rob. And do we have any AOB? I am hoping we have covered everything. So before someone gets a chance to put their hand up, I'm going to call this meeting